All right, here we are, with a little bit of a different twist for things to react to. I wanted to take a look at this thing about how apparently insanely radical the Biden administration is. Um, from Ben Shapiro. I haven't watched this, and it's kind of long, so I might not do the whole thing all at once. I might go to like halfway or something. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes me. I don't know how long I'm gonna react for. So we'll just kind of see as it goes, and let's see what we can find out.
Every single day, the Democrats are rolling out more evidence that they are more and more radical, and the media are going to treat this as moderation.
Also, I want to point out that he talks so insanely fast, and I am on normal playback speed. He just talks like he's on two times playback speed.
They're going to just pretend that nothing bad is going on. So Susan Rice, who's the domestic policy advisor, based on her vast experience lying to the American public about Benghazi, she is the domestic policy advisor to Joe Biden.
Uh, Susan Rice is not a radical figure. Um,
And she was explaining to Jonathan Capehart, who again is a far left guy. He writes for the Washington Post. He's over on MSNBC.
I guarantee you, if he writes for the Washington Post and he's on MSNBC, that he's probably not a far left guy. Because MSNBC and the Washington Post hate left wing people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. But anyways,
explaining to Jonathan Capehart that when the Biden administration says things like racial justice and racial equity, then that is not divisive. Now, here's the thing: it's super divisive.
what's divisive about saying racial justice?
The reason it's divisive is because it is thinking of justice as a group thing. Justice is not a group thing. Justice is an individual thing.
No, because if black people like systematically have like a worse chance at getting justice or like are shafted in like a criminal justice system or something, and they're the ones who are disproportionately suffering, then racial justice means making sure that all the races have the same level of justice because disproportionately one race is suffering in comparison to the others.
The definition of justice is you get what you deserve, not you get what your group deserves, which is inherently racially bigoted.
You get what your group deserves. No. What? What is that? What? I don't even know what kind of point that is. Like, you get what your group. What? Racially bigoted. How? No. It's not. You're just saying that because America has a history of racist sentiment and it still has systematic issues to this day that certain races need to be like protected from that, and that needs to stop, and that's what racial justice is. I don't know how that's bigoted. That's not bigoted. What?
And the idea that you get what your group deserves, why? Why? Serious.
You get what your group deserves. Why should you, as a black person, have the ability for all like what even is the point here? What is the point? How does this respond?
Seriously. But that is the case that is being made over and over by the Biden administration. Here is Susan Rice saying that this is actually unifying. This is the new unity, guys. They're not radical. This is all moderate. Here's Susan Rice.
This is actually the opposite of dividing us. This is about bringing everybody in and being inclusive. It's a bit rich for the Republicans after the 4 years of the most divisive president ever, who used bigotry.
Also, the audio is cutting from him playing it back, not me. I don't know what's going on with that.
And hatred as a political strategy to accuse a new administration that is trying to include and lift up everybody of divisiveness.
It's literally not attempting to include and lift up everybody.
But it is because they're being disenfranchised. And so you enfranchise them, and this is not divisive to give them the same, like, not even giving, you're just taking away the barriers and detriments that they're facing. It's not divisive to remove the barriers that black people have.
If you are saying that certain groups should be privileged above other groups, that is the
Literally, no one's being privileged above other groups.
exact policy that is being proposed. By the way, even Politico is noting this today. I didn't write.
What? what are you? He just throws things out there and says it, and then people are like, "Yeah, Ben, that's true."
Politico, guys, it's okay. You don't have to get mad at Politico. Okay? Staffers at Politico. So they have an entire piece in the fabled, untouchable, pristine Politico playbook. Okay, about the equity versus equality routine that the Biden administration is doing. They say this. They're all talking about equity, right? This is the early buzzword of the Biden administration, popping up in nearly every policy proposal, executive order, and speech by the president and his top officials so far. They're all talking about equity, not to be confused with equality, the umbrella term that past administrations, including Barack Obama's, used to describe efforts to address racial and economic disparities. So what's this all about? The idea in a nutshell is this. Equality means every person is treated the same. They get the same resources from the government and same access to services no matter what. Well, no, equality generally means that every person is treated the same according to the rights that are accorded to them.
Wait, let me back up. Hold on. Let me just
Racial and
recap
economic disparities. So what's this all about? The idea in a nutshell is this. Equality means every person is treated the same. They get the same resources from the government and same access to services no matter what.
From a governmental standpoint. Yeah, that's what equality would be. Equality from a government standpoint.
Well, no, equality generally means that every person is treated the same according to the rights that are accorded to them.
I don't. I don't. Every person is treated the same according to the rights that they have. I don't know. That's just vague. I don't know what to make of that.
Equity is an attempt to account for differences in need among people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Even this is
Yeah, it's true. Equity is to account for. Yeah, that's a fair enough definition, I suppose. That seems reasonable enough. That and I think the important thing for that he is not considering is that equity and equality that they're talking about what those terms typically mean in the context of a Joe Biden discussion. When Joe Biden says equality, he means that. When Joe Biden says equity, he means that. And I don't think Ben is giving that any level of consideration, even though he probably should be.
is a bias. No, equity is an attempt to end with the same result for all groups.
Here, wait a minute. Look at the code I got up. I got this code up and a channel dashboard. Equity, the quality of being fair and impartial. Yeah, the quality of being fair. It should be fair and impartial. And then, of course, that's all share stuff. So we're just going to leave that. Look at this is going to take forever to respond to this man because he just throws random things out. I'm only 2 minutes in and it's 7 minutes into the thing. But look, equity to be fair and impartial. Yeah, that's what they mean mostly.
That's the goal, right? Whereas Kamala Harris put it 2 days before the election, equality suggests, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place.
That's true. Not everyone is starting out from the same place. If black people are being disenfranchised and disadvantaged, like in a criminal justice position, then there's probably more work to make sure that they have equal standing than other people would have. Like, there's less work for like a white person to need equal standing. Like, what do white people get shafted on in comparison? Not that much.
Sounds a lot like communism, right? And everybody should end up.
What? No, communism? You're gonna compare Kamala Harris, to a communist? No. What?
With the same amount. The
What?
distinction is more than a matter of semantics. It is critical to understanding how the Biden agenda is taking shape and where it's heading in the months and years to come. Already, equity is an organizing principle of every policy prescription Biden has put forward so far, from housing to climate change. Don't worry, they're not radicals, guys. It's totally fine.
They aren't. Biden is a noted moderate candidate for like his entire career. He was one of the most conservative Democrats in his entire time in the Senate. That was the reason Obama picked him to be his vice president, was because the perceived progressiveness of Obama was seen as something that might be concerning to the electorate. So they picked a conservative Democrat to balance it out in Joe Biden.
Today, I wrote about another example in a story for Politico, say the editors of Playbook. Black and brown people who are disproportionately affected by the coronavirus are also least likely to get vaccinated. There are lots of reasons why, but access to the internet to sign up for shots and access to pharmacies and hospitals to receive the shots is a big one.
Yeah, that's true. Also, there's a history of black people being used for medical like experimentation and stuff in the United States that gives them a like widespread, deep-rooted distrust of medical authorities for understandable reasons.
Simply giving all people access to vaccination isn't enough. Biden officials say. It will likely require deploying mobile units to certain black and brown neighborhoods, among other targeted actions, to get the job done. Okay, no, the actual critique of vaccine policy is not that in areas where there's literally no ability to get vaccine, we should make sure that people can get vaccine. The critique is that the CDC policy originally recommended that we vaccinate young African American people before 65-year-old white people, which is nuts. Okay.
I have no idea what in the world he's referring to here. I don't think. What? What? I have not. What? See, he just pulls random things like this out, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. I don't know what thing he's referring to here. This isn't something. What? I don't. The only reason for that, maybe, assuming that it happened, is that African Americans have been disproportionately suffering and dying from COVID. And so that would be like the way to like counteract that and deal with the fact that they disproportionately suffer from coronavirus.
Okay, that's crazy. Now, says Politico, conservatives have taken notice of Biden's embrace of equity and are criticizing it as affirmative action by a different name.
Because conservatives will criticize anything that help black people.
That is what it is. In push for woke equity, Biden abandoned.
What affirmative action policy? I mean, look, I'm not going to launch into obviously all the benefits of whatever affirmative action because I'm already 12 minutes in and I'm only 4 minutes into this fucking Ben Shapiro video. And look, I don't even know if it's worth responding to every single point in like a weird way. But like I don't know. I don't know. They're just saying like, yeah, this is what I see.
Equality, read the headline of a New York Post editorial over the weekend. The equity approach assumes that any outcome that doesn't meet inane racial quotas is the result of bias and, in fact, systemically racist, the newspaper opined. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas asked HUD Secretary-designate Marcia Fudge about the difference during her confirmation hearing on Thursday, seemingly trying to get her acknowledgement that equity means treating people differently based on their race.
Meet your next pillow.
Meet your next
Why do we
pillow.
make a pillow in the shape of a cube?
Why?
I'll tell you.
Oh, he looks like Bob Ross.
Fudge's response, quote, if you say to me that I'm going to give you $5 and you're going to give my friend $5, my $5 is not necessarily going to go as far because my friend already has a mother and father who are wealthy. Shortly after, Cotton sent out an email blast highlighting the exchange, signaling this could soon become ammunition in Washington's partisan warfare.
I mean, in a way, it's an accurate understanding of the situation. I mean, it is true that some people, like, if you're trying to provide support for disadvantaged communities, especially during a pandemic, you're not necessarily going to provide like the same level of support to like the wealthy family that has everything like stable and under control and didn't have their job cut than like the poor community in the city that hasn't been able to work for like 2 months or something random, like some random number. Like there's a reason that the stimulus checks like scale off as income increases.
Oh, see, Republicans pounce. That's the problem. These Republicans, they won't accept the idea that we should basically segregate people according to group and then treat them according to group identity rather than individually.
See, like, what kind of assumption is this? Like, he just says random crazy things like this, but realistically, black people, again, are disproportionately more likely to be suffering from these, like, problematic circumstances than white people. And so, they kind of need help with that, especially because all throughout history, lots of things have tried to push them into being in these disenfranchised positions, like redlining and, segregation and things like that.
By the way, even Fudge is fudging there.
What?
Right? The truth is, in the United States, we already have means-based social welfare programs. I do not receive any benefits from the federal government. People who are very impoverished in the United States receive benefits from the federal government.
How is that relevant to like?
They're going to judge you based on your race. They're going to judge you based on your history of racial victimization, not personal.
That's not what they're saying. They're saying that in many, like, again, I've already laid it out. They're saying in many circumstances, black people suffer more, which is true. They do. It's not, what else is there even to add? Like, it's not some racial segregation thing. Like, what?
Personally, but as a group. So Colin Powell's kid should receive $5, and my kid should not receive $5, even though both are growing up pretty wealthy.
No, It's not
Extending the debate
universal
to the
like
political to
that.
shape how some white Americans in the middle and on the right think about the Biden-Harris presidency. The left has recently embraced the shift to equity, and black and brown people have been there for decades. Will Biden try to sell it to the public? Doesn't look like it. So far, at least, administration officials are saying equity a lot, proposing policies they think reflect it and hoping that it clicks. Well, the reason that they are using the term equity, as opposed to something like affirmative action or quote unquote reparative justice, right? That's the other one they use, reparative justice, because it's a reparation. They don't want to use that language. They say equity hoping that your brain will think equality and then you'll just let it.
No, it's just because Biden is just, I don't know. Biden likes his like build back better. Biden just likes certain terms. Probably. I don't think this is some big calculated thing, honestly. Like Biden likes connections to like random things, and I'm sure there's something he sees in equity that connects to something, honestly. Because Build Back Better was like a Clinton thing, like Bill Clinton.
Go. That's the goal here, right? Just as they've shifted from
So like, I can't imagine it's based on some. It's like it's just the concept that it's based on some desire of his to hide some radical agenda he has. Like that's not Joe Biden. Joe Biden isn't that radical.
information to misinformation in the media so they can shut up people they don't like. Now they're shifting from equality to equity in the hope that you don't know the difference between equality and equity because one has only one extra syllable.
Yeah, that's
Basically.
not
And
what
this
it
has become the
is.
talking point
He's
for
just
every element of the Democratic
he's
agenda.
just got a cool new
Over the weekend,
term.
National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy, she said the environment is a racial justice issue. Everything is a racial justice issue.
Well, yeah, lots of things are racial justice issues, like the environment is as well, in some ways, because typically places that suffer a lot of environmental destruction and things like that are poorer communities, which tend to be black communities and things like that because of like disenfranchisement and segregation and things like that in the past that have like continued to today. And like lots of like garbage and sewage and stuff gets dumped in poor communities, or like poor communities can only settle in places that have been like ruined. Like look at why Flint hasn't had that. Why isn't Flint had their water fixed? Like if that were Ben Shapiro's neighborhood, I guarantee you he doesn't go 4 years without water, needing to buy bottled water. There's something about Flint and the residents of Flint that doesn't draw the kind of environmental like fixes and the water improvements that you would think of other places, or like the town in like Mississippi or something where a factory just dumped all their chemicals on it. That was a predominantly African American town because no one was going to defend the African Americans in the past. Like it's stuff like that that always happens. I'm really going to have to just stop at like 7 minutes.
Climate change is a racial justice issue because it exacerbates the challenges in the communities that have been left behind.
True.
It goes after the very same communities that pollution has held back and racism has held back. And it's our opportunity to serve those communities, to elevate them.
Okay, it's pretty amazing.
That's literally an understandable position, Ben. Ben, look. That's not that's true. That climate change exacerbates environmental issues, and people who suffer from environmental issues are going to suffer more from climate change than people who are not suffering from environmental issues. What's so complicated about that? Why is that so absurd? I guess you're a climate skeptic? I don't know.
And by the way, the goal here, that racial justice and climate justice are the same thing. The goal here is that if you then say you oppose their program, what are they going to call you? You know where it's going. I don't like your climate change program. Oh, it's because you're a racist.
I think that this is probably. I'm gonna stop it. I'm just gonna stop it at halfway because I don't really want to go for like 30 something minutes for this. I mean, I could. Do I just go and see what happens? Do I just keep going? Maybe I do. It's not why. It's not because you're a racist or something. It's just because they are connected, and maybe you'll oppose them more strongly because of it. In which case, that does seem kind of racist. But it's not like that's not the goal. It's because they literally are connected.
Racist, right? because you're a white supremacist. You're defending the white supremacist system. This is why whenever you hear anybody on the left use the language anti-racist, there's so much semantic game playing here. When people on the left use the language anti-racist, they do not mean opposes racism. They mean
Yes.
opposes if you're anti-racist,
Let me.
it means opposes quote unquote systems of racism, meaning any system that ends with a racially disparate outcome is a racist system. And if you don't oppose,
No, that's not what it means. A system of racism is one that, well, look, he's just boiling it down a lot into ways that it doesn't necessarily mean. Like, this isn't because it produces a racially disparate outcome. There's reasons behind why our system is systematically racist, like the criminal justice system and the redlining that forced them into poor neighborhoods for a long time, and how then those poor neighborhoods all have to fund their own education systems, which makes it harder to get teaching, which makes it harder to advance out of those areas, and that comes after like a century of segregation, that came after centuries of slavery. So like there's a like reason, and then it leads to a racially disparate outcome, and the system, it doesn't, he's interpreting it purposefully or maybe not as a backwards, like he's starting with the ending, and I don't know if he means to. He might be doing this for purposes of his audience. He might be meaning to start at the end and then going back, like, through, but I'm not positive.
that system, you are therefore complicit in that system. That's the Ibram X. Kendi nonsense. How radical is this? It's so radical that over the weekend, Ibram Kendi was attacking John McWhorter. Okay, John McWhorter is not a conservative. John McWhorter is like a middle of the road liberal.
Let's see who this guy is. John McWhorter is a linguist. Stop pretending about you are not alone in finding his ideas primitive. Go with it and walk on. More on what modern anti-racism does to schools. Yeah, I don't know. I don't I don't know who this guy is. Linguistics professor at Columbia. I contributing editor at the Atlantic. I've never heard of the guy before. If he's conservative or not is not something I'm aware of.
But now, Ibram Kendi is basically suggesting that John McWhorter needs to be run out of polite society because he opposes Ibram X. Kendi's anti-racist, fascistic nonsense. And by the way,
Ibram Kendi is not a fascist. That's absurd.
it is absolutely fascistic nonsense.
No, it's
There's
not
no question about it.
fascist.
Right? Ibram X. Kendi has specifically proposed, I am not kidding you, that there be a national department at the federal level in the executive branch, a national anti-racism department capable of striking down any state, local, or federal policy ending with disparate racial outcome.
So, assuming that's true, that's not fascist to want a committee that would prevent laws that continue systemic racism. That's not fascist. That's not what fascism is. Because again, I'm assuming that this is one of those situations where Ben is starting with the end and then working backwards and saying, well, leftists see it like this, but leftists are working based off the reasons, getting to the conclusion, and not just taking the conclusion and saying, therefore, this system is bad. That's not what happens.
Okay, not an elected body, just a bunch of experts who basically rule in order to achieve a completely equitable arrangement at the top of politics. Now, Kendi is going after John McWhorter, who is a black liberal. Okay, like this is how far this is going. So don't let them pretend that this is all about equality or it's about decent.
I don't know how arguing with a black guy who is apparently supposedly a liberal online, but then again, he does think Joe Biden is radical, so I'm assuming McWhorter is probably like a moderate. honestly, if I'm just kind of scaling everything a little bit down, like from what he says, an argument between a left wing guy and a moderate is not evidence of how radical they are.
decency or it's about liberty. It absolutely is not. It absolutely is not.
Also, what in God's name does this have to do with the Biden administration at this point?
Instead, it is about ousting people you disagree with, even if you disagree with them kind of mildly on policy. This
No,
prompted, by the way, John McWhorter over the weekend
that's
to tweet
not
out,
what
"Stop
this
pretending about
is.
Ibram Kendi. You're not alone in finding his ideas primitive. Go with it and walk on. Maybe even tell your friends you don't get the hype. You'll likely find that they never did either." McWhorter has an excellent piece over at Substack all about this. He talked about at Substack the Kendi ideology and how it is infusing so many places all across the country. He says,
Sure.
it's a great piece. He says, "In my Atlantic article about anti-racism manifestos that threaten to destroy institutions of basic missions as educational, I mentioned that the Dalton School in New York was considering transformative anti-racism measures. However, I have it on good authority that in fact the damage was already done as of last semester. Here are some snapshots from Dalton, fall 2020, from concerned parents who, because if they went public with..."
I just don't. This doesn't feel relevant anymore. Honestly, I just don't. This is so dull. I. It's not even about. It's just the same thing. Like, oh, it's so radical and something about a Dalton school. I don't know. I just at this point, I don't know what else there is to really say about it. I could always come back and finish this off. But 26 minutes in, I kind of feel like there isn't really all that much more. I'll give him another few seconds and see if anything new pops up, but I'm thinking this might be approaching the end now.
with their names, they would be pilloried as bigots nationwide are staying anonymous. Quote, "Every class this year has had an obsessive focus on race and identity, racist cop reenactments in science, decentering whiteness in art class, learning about white supremacy and sexuality in health class." By the way, not rare at the Dalton School. In California, I believe it's at Brentwood School, somebody sent an email to me that showed that kids are being parents are being separated by race for actual parent-teacher conferences. They're having like a white parents' night and a black parents' night. This is in line with equity. It's all equity.
No. What? I don't. What? I don't know what he's referring to, dude. I don't. What? But I don't really want to sit through another ad all to listen to him complain about some Dalton school, which is a K through 12 school in New York City. Parents. It's a New York Post article about what? Um, is this must be what he's referring to? It's because of they wanted to support. Um, yeah, okay. So basically, these are supposedly the demands that Ben was talking about is diversity officers. Not sure what that means. Psychologists to help students dealing with race-based stress makes sense. Courses that focus on challenges to white supremacy and stuff. Okay, so courses about the world. Okay. And abolishing high-level academic courses by 2023. The performance of black students is not on par with non-blacks. And I'm assuming there's probably more to it than the New York Post put there. I can't imagine it's that straightforward. But, whatever. I don't, again, what does this random, like, kids school in New York City have to do with the Biden administration? I don't think it's relevant anymore. I mean, look, that is what it is. I mean, that's about all I want to respond to is 10 minutes of Ben Shapiro. Hopefully, you all enjoyed this one. Going on 30 minutes now, so you're gonna be with me for a while. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you think, and have a great day or night or something, everyone. I'll see you again soon.